Hi, this is J.R. Welcome back to the channel. Well, I'm here at the Prince Edward Theatre in London, and it's for the launch of Priscilla Presley's new book. This is the first book she's written since 1985, Elvis and Me, and it comes just a few short years after Lisa Marie's book. And I suspect that Priscilla is releasing this book now as damage control, because Lisa Marie's book didn't paint her in a very good light at all. Let's go inside and see what she has got to say for herself.
Because they're running late, they won't give you it now.
When you see, I don't know how many people saw him in person on stage, but he had stage fright. And he was really nervous about, who's going to come. And, are they going to walk out? I think a lot of entertainers are somewhat like that anyway. And I'm so glad you're here, by the way, and didn't walk out on me. but no, I'm just kidding. But yes, he was nervous. And it was another side of Elvis that I saw, because he was so proud, and he was, he's a real leader. But he hadn't appeared in so long, and he was older, and he was so concerned if he would even have people come to the show. And it was like, for me, just to watch him go, or have these nerves and not confident with himself, was a whole new lesson for me on what they call stage fright. Yeah. And that's really what he had. Obviously, after the first and second show, he became much more comfortable now, because the audience did applause, the audience did stand up, and that was the moment he came back again to perform.
And you refer to him a lot as the searcher, and talk about how much philosophy he read to you, and generally loved to read philosophy and to be searching for answers to all sorts of questions.
Yes, he'd go, no one's going to his room, by the way, that's a no-no. But he had piles of books next to the bedside, and there was a book called The Searcher. There was a book called The Searcher. That's why I named the show The Searcher. And he was looking for something. He was God-fearing, very much so. And he would look for so much leadership in his books. At that time in my life, I was not interested at all. I mean, he'd read the books, and he'd read things to me, and I'm trying very hard to understand it. It was a little deep for me. I was like 18, a little bit deep. I'd rather talk about something else. And sometimes I kind of doze, and he goes, "Are you not listening to me? I'm doing all of this," and you're like, no, he's not saying it in a bad way. I'm doing all this and reading him, and I want you to listen. Are you not? I go, no. I'm totally listening to you. In fact, it's so interesting, I have to close my eyes. It's 5 minutes. course, when he started Vegas, he was gone a lot. It happened when it hit me. We had a home in Palm Springs, and as well as we did in Beverly Hills. And he was in Vegas, and I told his cousin, who was and is still my best friend, I said, oh, I haven't been to get the mail since he was in Vegas. I better go check it out. So we drove up. I checked out the house, making sure it was okay. And the cleaners had cleaned everything because he was coming back in the following 2 weeks. And I saw the mailbox. It was packed with mail. A lot of it was on the road. And I said, you know, I have to go out and get all the mail. So when I got home, I started looking at the mail, and opening it up, and there was a couple of them that had, oh dear Elvis, it was so great being with you. I had the best time. I can't wait until we meet again. Okay, hello? Another one, Elvis, I'm so glad you like my friends, Cynthia and Caroline. And we stayed up until 6 o'clock in the morning talking and having fun and laughing. And I'm reading a few of these letters and I'm going, wow, he's got another life. There's a whole other life that he has. And I try to push it away. And I said to Patsy, let's go up and see, you know, anything that's going on this weekend. There are guys who are out there. Her husband worked for Elvis too, as one of the Memphis Mafia. And we went up again, and sure enough, there were about 4 or 5 cars there. And there were girls that were there, up there with the guys. And they were in the pool, swimming pool. And I said, you know, I can't take this. I cannot take this anymore. And I decided, you know, there's just another life he was living. Even though he would come home and be, you know, daddy, and he would be loving, I just couldn't get it out of my head, you know, and I, you know, this hate nagging. He did not like women nagging. Well, what did you do this for? How come? Why didn't you tell me this? Blah, blah, blah. Could never do that with him. So I had to basically just go with the flow. And that's when it got to be too much for me, and I decided, you know, it's just time for me to go and let him have the life maybe that he wanted. I was coming out about actually just getting my hair done, and my sister calls and said, J.R.s visitor just called, and he said he needs to talk to you right away. And I went, okay, so can you call him back? And I had to, for Joe to call me and say it's important, you know, I knew it was something. Never, ever did I think he was Elvis. And I sped to the house, quickly called Joe. I said, Joe, what's going on? You're trying to reach me. And he told me, you know, that Elvis wasn't well at all. And that that he passed. And I literally couldn't digest this. This couldn't be real. And I said, Joe, you know, that's just got a kid around. And he said, you know, you might want to get here right away. And so, of course, arrangements were made. She sent a plane for me, private plane. And in the meantime, as I'm going through this in days, I could not get it in my head, you know, that we had lost Elvis. And I had just talked to him a couple of days before. I just talked to him. And it sounded fine. And then to hear this news, it was literally, like all of us, I'm sure, have lost a loved one. And it's devastating. It is truly devastating. Then you start thinking, my God, you know, I'll never see him again. You know, what about Lisa? How do I tell Lisa? And it's funny, I think that children take things in what they do. Like I said, when she was outside at Graceland, she was riding her bike with her friend. And knowing that her dad had passed, it didn't really register with her.
Halfway through this show, there was an intermission. At this point, a QR code appeared on the big screen, and if we scanned it, we could submit questions to Priscilla through our phones. I knew this was probably the only chance I would ever get to ask her a deep and meaningful question about Elvis. So I submitted my question about Elvis's lifelong spiritual journey and his quest for the eternal answers. However, the host, Hannah McInnes, did not read out my question. In fact, she read out every other question apart from mine. So instead of us getting a deep understanding into Elvis's soul, we instead got questions about the TV show Dallas and how does Priscilla keep fit. Great job, Hannah McInnes. At this event, we didn't really learn anything new, and it should be noted that Priscilla did not comment on Lisa Marie's book or the allegations in a recent lawsuit that she stopped our beloved Lisa Marie's life support.
And then today, with this very nice cup, the King of London, you can buy on YouTube.